Hey, Keel the Quick here with another incarnation of Black Omen RPG, a little something I've been working on since maybe 2015. I'd recently changed engines again. It was originally LibGDX, then it was Unity, and now it was Godot. I made this version for a computer science course that I took, and I'd figure a postmortem could help me figure out where to go from here. So I've loaded up the version that I made a few months ago for my computer science course, which did get me an A in that course, so I'm proud of that. But of course, we've got a lot of work to do. So to start, I have this procedural planet shader that I'm very proud of. It doesn't pinch at the top. And this is Godot 3.52, I believe, and I wasn't able to get this shader into the new version, so a little unhappy about that. But hey, let's start off. Lower the volume there. So I don't think the save games will work, so let's go to a new game, because I changed how save games work in the future. And yeah, it just takes us over there, and we start in a little shipyard. So you have a readout of various commodity prices there, and we're on system 186. And we have a couple of places we can go to. We click on that, and then we shift over there. It takes us over to the market with a couple of debug commodities. And I'll show you how those are defined later. But these are here, and they have their prices set, and of course changed, tweaked, based on the system you're in. I believe, nope, that won't work. I have 25 cargo space and 1,000 credits, so it says I can't afford the transaction, but I have 1,000 credits. Oh, the merchant doesn't. Well, I don't know, old version. But I've purchased 2 of those, and you can see I've got 2 of them in my cargo hold, and my remaining cargo space is 23. Fantastic. The other one was supposed to be a bar, but I don't have that. You got a ship in the background and another procedural planet. I really do love the procedural planet shader. I really hope I can get that working again. But the idea was that here, in Genetinos, there would be NPCs you could click on and talk to, but those weren't developed for the class version of the game. We have some ship upgrades, and I believe this was oh, it's not as bad as I remember. Yeah, go through and select different upgrades for our ship. Currently, we don't have a lot of slots, or that didn't have slots and didn't have like tying them to specific slots like your engine or a turret or something like that. And you can also just buy whole new ships. You have the Flea, and this is based on a Palm Pilot game from, I think, the year 2000, 2001, maybe. You can still find that online, and they have Android versions called Space Trader. Nothing too complicated. But the cheapest and worst ship was called the Flea, which was a refurbished escape pod with an engine on the back and some cargo up front. And then your starting vessel, Weevil, and then the Hilux. That's a joke about the Toyota War. Google that. And it doesn't update. But if we launch, our ship will be returned. So let's launch. Into space, and it did work on touch and to pan around the world. On mobile, this was a little bit slow because, as you can see, I've got that procedural planet shader on every single planet. So when I was printing them out for debug purposes and all the planets were right next to each other, you'd have maybe 100 on screen, and that slowed everything to a chug. Yeah, boop. So we are on it. So we have this cool ring of fire that is our travel distance. So I click on system 185, travel, and we'll go over there. And we ran into a pirate flotilla, and they don't seem to notice us. Now, this is a little misleading. The combat system in this version of the game was not there. I do hope to have a actual functioning version of it soon. But it's kind of in a half-working, broken state because I'm trying to get it to work with different ships being generated when you encounter them. So we'll just ignore them. Then, oh, ignore that again. and then the camera automatically moves when we arrive. And we can buy some more fuel. Do we have credits? Yeah, we got credits for fuel. Buy that. And our range goes up. And we dock. And this is the other type of system dock we have. And this one just has a merchant and a shipyard. I don't think the shipyard is configured, or it was just parts. Yeah, this one's just parts. But we can see our procedural planet in the background there, the red one. Looking very nice with a little bit of an atmospheric effect on here. And then we can select our commodities, sell max, which works as 2. It's good. For some reason the buy, it's going to max cargo space. So little odd. But confirm. And then we have our credit, and the merchant has gone into debt. I've since updated that, but again, this is the version that was the final for that project. Yeah. So that is kind of the basics of the game. Can't zoom out to the whole galaxy, but yeah, it's got the foundation there. And my goal here was to try and recreate that Palm Pilot game, Space Trader, but with a few more niceties. Specifically the combat system, which, again, I feel bad for not having implemented. But I've got a lot here, and I'm proud of what I made. Because of the way the course worked out, I could have only had like the last 3 weeks to put this all together. But yeah, that's how that works. And so specifically the course that this was for was a mobile app development course. And we were allowed to use game engines for it, and some other students used the game engine and just kind of straight up made a game. Like they just kind of took their first person shooter they were making for another course and put it in there. And I didn't want to do that specifically. Well, I did. I wanted to make this game, so I shoehorned it in there. But I did try to incorporate some of the concepts about mobile app development for how the UI works in the game. And so if I start it up again, you'll see we have a menu, we have the background. If we hit settings, the camera moves to another position, and then the new UI view, it's a term from Android development, the view pops up. Then you go back, and that is over here. So we have a services manager. Oh, right, it's centered on the origin. And then we have this point in space. That is where the camera will interpolate to when you start a new game, and we can see that again. If we start that, the camera moves, and boom, stops at that point. And if we go to settings, the camera pivots and goes. So if we have, I think it's still called merchant. Yeah, that's the settings. But you can see if I turn that to local coordinates that it's looking off up into the corner. And when you click it, the camera interpolates over to here and then opens up this menu that's tied to it. So that one's a UIV blank, that's the continue, and that's the character generation new game thing. So if I go to the merchant, and we'll open up the UIV blank one, so we'll go over to our scenes, was it? Prefabs, there we are. And we have a folder full of UI views. And this one is where the meat and the potatoes of the game are happening. So we have this blank one, which I think that's the, yeah, this is the placeholder one there, and it just has a back button which goes back into that system and takes you to the root menu. Character generation, which you don't really see. Yeah, this would let the player allocate stat points and, you know, make a character for that RPG goodness. The continue game, encounter, ship, where is trade? And this is the trading one, yeah. So I did want to incorporate some of the concepts from the course, mobile application development. And so for this, you'd see you have a main window, some sounds that I don't think I use anymore, but we have these 3 big sections here, UI R, where we have our buttons laid out, L, which I'm using to display some information, and UI MT for middle top. And of course, one of the things with mobile application development is to make sure that your application works on a variety of different screen sizes. Let me stop the game right there, and I believe I can play this one. So Godot has built in some different ways of rescaling the screen, but I had to kind of create my own. There's a bug, but we'll get past it. Yeah. So if I resize it and keep the proportion the same, you can see it kind of stays proportionally the same. But if I change the aspect ratio, the buttons kind of stay together too. And importantly, if I resize it like this, you can see it automatically kind of comes to a phone size layout. And that is, let's see if I can make that a little bit bigger. Yeah, kind of a phone size layout, which needs a little bit of tweaking, and I could definitely make it better to fit types of phones better. But this is what I got working. And you can see I've got all of the main buttons here where your thumb would be. And I wanted to be able to switch it so you could like switch what hand you were holding your phone in. And so that your important buttons would be right next to your thumb, with things farther away that you don't want to accidentally bump. Because if you accidentally bump this down here, which is in the palm area, you'll go left. So, like what? Oh. Come on. You know, left or right. Yeah, okay, that bugs out every time. Yeah, so you go left or right and just sort of change the commodity that you're looking at. But if you this is not in the palm zone, the confirm your sale button or the cancel. So I thought that was a nice and interesting design. And that should work with all of the different menus. It's less apparent here. But if we cycle it down, you can see that the back button scaled up a little bit. Now that one was a little bit of a mind bender for me, and what I ended up doing there is creating this one script called scalar oscillation. I don't know if that's a good name for it, but that's what I named it at the time. But I give it a faux screen size, and it has a max width proportion for this specific item. And I don't recall exactly how I get that to work, but let's see. Excellent. I get that to be recording size. Oh my god. So yeah, nothing too complicated here. It extends a control node because that's what it's got to go on. Has a faux screen size, and on every frame it just rescales itself. It gets the window size and does some math that I don't remember here, but I believe it creates a faux rectangle and then scales it to that, and then sees how it would fit with everything else. And it definitely is not extensible to every situation you could find yourself in on a phone, but it worked well enough to get it to work on a tablet, and for it to work on a phone, and for it to work in the desktop. And I think one of the good things here is I could make this in the 2D space here. I could make all of this right here kind of be a separate child. So I could have this one UI trade thing, and I could have, let's say, a child node of control, and this one could just be desktop. And then this one could be mobile. And put that all in there. And then I could turn one on or off depending on the platform that I'm on. And then it would all go through the same UI trade manager thing, which is essentially just what I wire all the buttons up to and what I have and what puts back out to the output area, which I could change. But then I could have support for kind of either platform, which would be fantastic. Now I'm going to go into the cool shader that I made here for the planet, and let me pull that up. So here is a scene just with the planet shader in the background and a world environment to make the background black, like space, really quick. So let me select that, go into the material there, and pop open the visual shader. So just Looks pretty complicated at first glance, but most of what I have going on here is taking a custom shader node I found online to get 3D noise, duplicating it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times for 6 octaves of noise there, and then combining it all up properly, multiplying it, and then passing it through to what I want. So let's see how this works here. We have the 3D noise, which I believe I can pop that out and pop it in there. And yeah, it looks a little bit like a moon. And then that is going into this. And this is actually something I found out in tweaking this to get kind of more realistic and, shall we say, terrain-looking terrain, I guess. So let me pop it in through there. And you've probably seen this type of pattern with noise before where you have like the lines there. But I kind of felt like those looked, and let me see if I can, no, you can't really see the lines there. But what's happening is that instead of having a single kind of gradient from white to black, you remap that gradient from white to black to this gradient right here, which is white, black, white. And if I move that around, you can see how that changes. If I move it all the way, it looks just like it did before. But if I have this, then I have 2 high points. So 2 kind of different numbers that will be mountain ranges. And then I have these lines, which will be the like tectonic plate lines, the boundaries between tectonic plates at the bottom of the ocean. So I then have a ocean depth thing, gradient, I believe. Let's see what we're getting out of there. Yeah, so this is where I am getting the ocean depth from, which was one of the shader parameters. So I can actually change that. And you can see there's that same line from the noise that I had remapped. And if I bring that up, and see, it just kind of gives it a little bit more of a continental feel, right? Actually, we can just put that right back in there and see how that works. So let's bypass that. Actually, that's going into 2 things. That'll take too long. You can do that yourself. Then we have a surface gradient. And the surface gradient, this is the color of the ground. And this one I change. It's also a parameter. So yeah, I can add that in and change it based on the specific procedural planet that I'm making. So that's how I got like red planets, green planets, blue planets, and all I did was multiply these colors, change them to HSV, change the hue, and put them back. So the gradient essentially stayed the same, like the points of color on it, but yeah, they're all equidistant. They just changed their hue. The water stayed the same because that one was built in. Ocean depth. So water was always water, or the oceans are always water. Yeah, there we go. And this is where I mask between the 2, I believe. Yeah, so that's our actual kind of ocean height. And actually, now that I put it like this, my little atmosphere shader that I made looks much better. I was not happy with how that turned out, but it was cool. So yeah, shader parameters. Oh, it's changing, right. Interesting. Okay, let's go back into the shader and fix that. So yeah, I have a mask that determines my water or ocean height. I have a kind of valley-based water or valley-based terrain generation. I have ocean depth gradient that goes just between the deep water, shallow water, and sand beach color, and combine that all together to get some unique and interesting planets. And then the next pass, that's how I do the effect here. That is also a visual shader that has some vertex displacement. So it takes the sphere and just pops it out a little bit. And then it does a little bit of a faux Fresnel. No, that had no effect. Okay. And more gradients there. And that kind of determines the thickness, I guess. So I can make it thicker or thin. Yeah, or change it to be very strange looking there. But I need to get this to be a bit more blurry, I think. Yeah, so that one looks very sharp. That one looks a little bit soft. And we just want that to be darker. Man, Godot, their UI is updated a lot. I've been using Godot 4 for a while. Here we go. Can we make it a little bit? Oh, always trying to tweak my stuff to make it better. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so a little bit of an atmospheric effect on the planet there. And I thought that kind of looked nice. It'd be nice if I could get it figured out to have it work with the world or global lighting to get light scattering through it in that kind of beautiful way. But so that's the basics of how I got that shader set up for some reasonably interesting planets. Probably not the best for an actual explorable planet, but you'll be in space the entire time playing this game.